Somewhere between the mountains and the jungle stand ancient temples, older than the Egyptian pyramids. Their walls are carved into the rock, their domes are aligned with the stars, and their corridors lead to places where logic breaks down. These sanctuaries seem to preserve knowledge left behind not by humans, but by someone who lived long before we can remember, and perhaps still watches. Kailash Temple. Hidden in the heart of India, amid the black basalt slopes of Ellora, lies a temple unlike any human creation. It's called Kailash, a sanctuary carved entirely from a single rock. There are no individual blocks, no traces of assembly or masonry. The entire temple seems to have grown out of the rock like a living mountain, transformed by the hand of an unknown architect into a monolith within which galleries, staircases, and courtyards intertwine. Archaeologists still cannot explain how such a structure could have been created in the 8th century, without machinery, without blueprints, without lasers, and without the margin for error. For one misstep with a chisel could have destroyed the entire massif. The builders started at the top and worked their way down, as if someone had a precise plan in mind, as if this temple had existed before, in another form, in another era, and people simply had to free it from the mountain's depths. Over the course of several decades, they removed hundreds of thousands of tons of stone, carving passages, columns, and halls in the solid basalt, where even the light falls at an angle calculated down to the smallest detail. Some researchers have calculated that removing such a volume of rock using hand tools would have required at least 100 years of continuous labor. But Kailash was built, according to chronicles, in just 18. As if the forces at work here were not of this time. From the outside, the temple resembles a step pyramid, but its shape defies any earthly rule of symmetry. The central sanctuary connects to an inner courtyard, where figures of the gods stand in the open air, while above them rise walls that seem carved not by man, but by the elements themselves. Every element, from the miniature carved windows to the colossal columns, is crafted with such precision, as if the creators wielded tools capable of shaping stone with surgical precision. And all this is without traces of chipping, without mistakes, without haste, as if time flowed differently within the mountain. Local legends say the temple was erected in a single night, when the queen, praying to the god Shiva, promised to fast until she saw the spire of the future temple. Then the architect, named Kukasa, vowed to complete the upper part before morning. With the first rays of the sun, the completed tower stood over the valley, and since then, no one has been able to understand how this was possible. For Indians, this miracle was proof that the temple had not been built. It had been liberated, as if the eternal form hidden in the stone had awaited the hour of discovery. A strange silence reigns within Kailash. The stone elephants bearing the temple on their backs seem alive, and their shadows seem to move independently of the sun. The walls are not empty. Every niche radiates a sense of presence. People who have been there speak of a sound that cannot be recorded, a barely perceptible low tone emanating from the floor, as if the mountain itself were breathing. When tourists leave, this hum seems to fade, but those who return at night claim to hear an echo within, like breathing. Scientists have attempted to understand the temple's structure using laser scanning and digital models, but even three-dimensional reconstructions are inconsistent. The column sizes diverge slightly, and the lines of the ceiling seem to conform to an internal symmetry invisible to the naked eye. Vibrations in the central hall behave strangely. The sound wave there reflects as if the space itself were adjusting its rhythm. Some engineers believe the temple was created not only for worship, but also to work with sound, with resonance, with what the ancients called the breath of the world. However, there's not a single mention of the builders at Kailash. No master's name, no start date, no description of the work. All that's known is that the temple dates back to the Rashtrakuta era, but its technology doesn't correspond to any known period. Chisel marks on the walls are spaced evenly, as if machine-made, and some angles are too right-angled to have been created by a mason by hand. Even modern machines would be unable to reproduce many elements without damaging the rock structure. When the sun sets behind the Ellora cliffs, the shadows cast the temple as if it were a single body fused with the earth. From above, its shape is visible as a gigantic mandala, a perfect circle inscribed within a square, an ancient symbol of the union of heaven and earth. Perhaps those who created Kailash knew they were creating not a building, but a door, not into the future or the past, but into that space where stone, light, and sound become one. And while no one has been able to explain how this was accomplished, the temple remains a mystery, standing between human ingenuity and something that has long since surpassed man. Angkor Wat. In the middle of the Cambodian jungle, where the humid air is filled with the scent of fog and rotting leaves, stands a mirage city, seemingly born from a dream. Its name is Angkor Wat, and it is more than a temple. It is an entire stone universe, created in honor of the god Vishnu, but seemingly addressed not to people, but to the sky. From above, one can see that all the towers and walls are aligned with mathematical precision toward the stars, and the central axis aligns with the sunrise on the vernal equinox. Scientists talk about chance, but the more measurements they take, the less doubt remains. Everything was built not for beauty, but for an invisible correspondence between Earth and cosmos. Angkor Wat was built in the early 12th century under King Suryavarman II, but traces of the construction have disappeared. No one knows where the sandstone was quarried, how it was transported across rivers and swamps, or how blocks weighing tens of tons were joined together seamlessly. It is believed that the temple's construction took over 30 years and the labor of hundreds of thousands of people, but not a single worker's grave, camp, or tool has been found. All that remains is stone, each facet seemingly polished to a brilliant finish. The temple itself occupies an area the size of a small town. It is surrounded by a moat nearly 200 meters wide, filled with water that reflects the towers like a mirrored ward against evil. When the setting sun touches the spires, the walls seem to ignite from within, and all of Angkor transforms into a golden flame. This moment is not simply a play of light, but an ancient ritual, a union of the heavenly and the earthly, when rays of light illuminate the very top of the central tower, symbolizing the manifestation of a deity. The modern research suggests that a network of hidden galleries and chambers extends beneath the temple, accessible by no known staircase. Ground-penetrating radar, GPR, has detected voids located directly beneath the central sanctuary, as if something hidden there should remain hidden from human sight. Some believe these chambers are connected to an ancient cult of water energy, as Angkor Wat is built at the intersection of hundreds of canals and reservoirs, forming a gigantic hydraulic system that still functions with alarming precision. The temple walls are covered with thousands of bas-reliefs. They tell the story of the world from creation to the end of time, depicting battles between gods and humans, scenes of heaven and hell, star maps, and myths that no one can decipher anymore. Each figure, each pattern, contains a geometry that creates a rhythm, as if the wall itself were singing silently. Scientists call this visual resonance, and monks call it the breath of Vishnu. On certain days of the year, light penetrates the corridors in such a way that it illuminates only one figure, leaving the others in shadow, as if the temple operates by its own calendar. Folk legends say Angkor Wat was built not by humans, but by beings from the sky. They descended in a radiant light, brought knowledge of the stars, and disappeared when the temple was completed. Locals still believe that lights move above the towers at night, like floating stars, and that a power dwells within, capable of hearing the thoughts of those who approach with a pure heart. When the French first saw Angkor in the 19th century, they thought they'd entered another world. The thickets concealing the temple seemed like a wall of living roots, but beyond them lay a stone city where everything was in place: columns, arches, vaults. Only time had hollowed out the faces of the statues, leaving them with an expression of infinite peace. Some researchers believe this is not a temple, but an ancient calendar, a device capable of tracking the movement of the planets and predicting eclipses. Today, hundreds of years later, Angkor Wat remains a mystery. At night, when only the rustling of leaves and the cicadas are heard around, it seems as if the temple breathes with the jungle. The water in the moat reflects the stars, and then one can see how sky and earth coincide, as if the temple was built for that single moment when a person can understand that the universe and the temple are one and the same. Angkor Wat is more than just the ruins of an ancient empire. It is a frozen reminder that people once knew more about the world than we can imagine. Bagan, on the plains of Myanmar, where the sun rises above the mist and the air smells of dust and campfire smoke, lies a city made not of houses, but of thousands of temples. It's called Bagan, and from above, it seems as if the earth is covered in stone stars. There are more than 2,000 pagodas here, built between the 11th and 13th centuries, each one facing the sky as if in touch with its secret rhythm. It's as if the people who lived then were striving to construct a map of the universe on Earth, precise, symmetrical, incomprehensible. According to chronicles, construction began at the behest of King Anuradha, who decided to transform his capital into a sacred abode. But no one can explain how so many temples, seemingly carved by a single hand, emerged in just a few decades. The stone domes, spires, arches, and vaults are made of fired brick, which remains as strong as if baked by the sun itself, even after 1,000 years. Some domes form figures that align with the lines of stellar constellations, and the distances between temples echo the ancient proportions used in the sacred geometry of India. The city stretches for tens of kilometers, and each temple has its own character. Some seem to reach upward like torches, while others are hidden in the greenery, revealed only to those walking the path at random. Inside, frescoes depict scenes from the life of the Buddha, but their arrangement is governed by a strange code. Some researchers argue that the pilgrim's path through Bagan is not simply a journey through the earth, but a movement along a spiritual map. Each temple corresponds to a state of consciousness, and the entire city to a cycle of rebirth. Particularly striking is the Ananda Temple, built in the shape of a cross. Its corridors form perfect angles, and the vaults are connected so that the sound of footsteps in one wing can be heard in the other. In the center are 4 gigantic Buddha statues facing the cardinal directions. When the sun rises, a ray of light filters through a narrow window and illuminates the face of the statue facing east. And in the evening, when the sun sets, the light falls on the western figure. Thus, the temple lives in harmony with the sky, marking each day as a new chapter in eternity. Locals say Bagan never sleeps at night. Monk-like figures wander around the temples, though the monasteries have long since vanished. Sometimes they see lights in the domes, as if lamps were burning inside, though no one enters after sunset. Tourists report hearing a hum in the fog, like distant chanting, though there are no bells or chimes in the area. Scientists attribute this to the wind, but the monks find such explanations too simple. For them, it's the breath of spirits guarding the sacred space. When dawn paints the horizon gold, Bagan becomes a mirage. The air is filled with light, and hot air balloons carrying pilgrims slowly rise above the temples, like souls yearning to see the entire city at once. From above, the temples form patterns, spirals, straight lines, circles. It seems as if someone once imprinted a message into this landscape that no one has yet been able to decipher. After the kingdom's decline, Bagan was abandoned. Earthquakes destroyed hundreds of temples, but even in ruins, they retained their internal order. Some frescoes have not faded, and the colors remain vibrant, as if painted yesterday. Archaeologists cannot explain why the pigments, made from earth and ash, have not faded over 8 centuries. It is believed that they used a rare mineral that changes color depending on the angle of light, creating the illusion of movement. Today, Bagan is protected as a human heritage site, but for the Myanmar people, it is, above all, sacred ground. They say the temple is not a stone, but the living breath of prayer. When one enters and hears the silence begin to resonate, it means their spirit has aligned with the spirit of the temple. And perhaps therein lies the main mystery of Bagan. It was not built to impress, but to remind. Everything earthly is but a reflection of what already exists in the sky. Borobudur. On the island of Java, where damp clouds cling to the slopes of volcanoes and the air is saturated with the scent of cinnamon and ash, rises a temple that seems crafted not by hand, but by thought itself. Its name is Borobudur, a stone mandala, an ancient symbol of the soul's journey from darkness to light. Built over 2,000 years ago, it still amazes with its scale and a stillness that seems alive. Standing at its foot, you sense not just the presence of antiquity, but the breath of time, slow and inexorable, as if the stone itself had memorized the steps of those who came here seeking enlightenment. Borobudur is built not from slabs, but from millions of carefully fitted volcanic stone blocks. Laid without a drop of mortar, each block seems to know its place, and the walls, domes, and stupas are joined as if the temple were grown from the earth's depths. Archaeologists still cannot understand how such a perfect structure was erected in the 9th century without written plans, machines, or metal. Its 9 tiers rise in a spiral, and each level symbolizes a stage of consciousness. from the world of desire to the world of form, and further to the world of formlessness. The summit of Borobudur is an empty stupa, a symbol that enlightenment has no image and needs no words. But the temple's mystery lies beyond its architecture. The interior walls are covered with over 2,000 reliefs, carved with astonishing precision. These images tell not simply the life of the Buddha, but the human journey from birth to liberation. Each fragment is connected to the next, forming a continuous narrative that can be read by moving in a circular pattern from bottom to top. Those who have studied the temple claim that it was conceived as a gigantic book, read by walking through it with the body, not the eyes. What makes Borobudur special is its location. From above, the temple blends perfectly into the surrounding landscape. To the east lies Mount Merapi, a symbol of destruction. To the west, mountains, a symbol of eternity. And the temple itself stands in the middle, between birth and destruction. On the equinoxes, the sun rises directly over the eastern portal, and a beam of light runs through the entire complex, like an arrow pointing to the sky. This coincidence is too precise to be accidental. Scientists have attempted to explain it with astronomical observations, but the precision of the alignment suggests that the ancient builders possessed knowledge lost to modern man. According to local legend, the temple disappeared under layers of ash after a volcanic eruption and was only discovered underground in the 19th century. Local farmers said lights wandered over the site at night, and animals avoided the valley. When the temple was excavated, it was found to be in remarkably good condition, as if protected by time itself. Some researchers believe Borobudur was deliberately buried to survive the centuries. Perhaps those who built it knew an era of oblivion would come and wanted to preserve a message for those who came later. Borobudur's greatest mystery is its effect on people. Ascend to the top tier, and the space around you begins to change. The wind becomes quieter, sounds lose their direction, and the air seems denser. In the center, among the stone stupas, you can hear only your own breathing and the faint echo of your pulse. Some monks claim that the temple is built on the principle of sound resonance. Each stupa emits a barely perceptible vibration, and together they create a harmony that matches the frequency of the human heart. When you reach the top, your heartbeat matches the rhythm of the stone, and at that moment, the boundary between body and space disappears. But even for science, Borobudur remains a mystery. No ancient text provides a definitive account of its construction. The architect's name has not been found, nor is the start or end date of the work indicated. It is like a temple without an architect, as if the earth itself has chosen to express itself through stone. Soil analysis shows that the site beneath the temple was once a swamp, and to erect such a massive structure here, it was necessary to drain the area and create an artificial foundation. No one knows how the ancient craftsmen accomplished this task. There are no traces of mines or quarries nearby that could have produced millions of stones. Locals believe the temple's connection to the heavens is more than just symbolic. On certain nights, when the moon rises over the volcano, light can be seen reflecting off the top of the stupa and falling to the ground in a circle. They say this is the Buddha's breath, a reminder that all living things are connected by invisible lines of light. Tourists see only a beautiful glow, but the monks remain silent, saying that at such moments the temple speaks to those who can hear. Today, Borobudur is visited by thousands of people from all over the world, but even amid the hustle and bustle of the day, it retains a strange sense of peace. When the sun sets and the last rays touch the stone, it seems as if the temple comes to life, bringing to life all the prayers uttered here over thousands of years. Borobudur is more than just architecture. It is a place where time stands still, where every step upward is a step within, and the higher you climb, the fewer words remain. Shigir Idol and the sanctuaries of ancient Siberia. In the middle of the Ural swamps, where silence is thicker than the wind and the air smells of resin and time, a piece of wood was discovered that changed our understanding of human antiquity. It was named the Shigir Idol, a wooden statue over 5 meters tall, estimated to be over 12,000 years old. This means it predates the Egyptian pyramids, the Sumerian cities, and all known temples on the planet. Discovered in the late 19th century in peat layers, it had lain there for thousands of years, as if the earth itself had decided to preserve it from destruction. The idol is carved from a single piece of larch, Its surface is covered in strange patterns, lines, zigzags, and geometric symbols unlike any known language. Its face features enormous eyes and a straight, almost human mouth, yet its expression remains inscrutable. Scholars call it abstract, but there's something more to these lines, as if the ancient masters were trying to capture not an image, but energy, not an appearance, but a presence. Some believe the figure depicts not a deity, but the very concept of spirit, the force that unites heaven, earth, and man. The main mystery of the Shigar idol lies not only in its age, but also in the level of its symbolism. Research shows that the patterns are arranged in a strictly mathematical sequence. Each line has its own rhythm and repetition, and the proportions of the figures follow the golden ratio. This means that even when Europe was just emerging from the Ice Age, somewhere in the Urals, there were people possessing knowledge we are accustomed to associating with much later civilizations. Where they came from is unknown, but all they left behind was a symbol carved in wood, which has outlived even stone. When archaeologists first assembled the fragments, they discovered that the idol had been broken and partially burned. This may have been part of a ritual. The peat environment had preserved it so well that the wood fibers remained alive, like the body of a creature sleeping underground. Its surface bore traces of ancient tools, tiny cuts, like those made by stone chisels, executed with astonishing precision. This means that those who created it not only mastered woodworking techniques, but also understood how to give it stability and a shape that would withstand millennia. Traces of an ancient sanctuary were discovered near the discovery site. The remains of wooden structures, circular pits, and charred areas of earth resembling hearths. All of this suggests that the idol was part of a vast ritual complex. People from all over the area may have come here to ask for rain, sun, or protection from invisible forces. Researchers suggest that the idol may have been an axis mundi, connecting three levels of existence: underground, earthly, and heavenly. The upper symbols represent spirits, the middle ones represent humans, and the lower ones represent ancestors resting underground. Ural legends still tell of sacred wooden towers once standing here, around which people danced and offered gifts. Wood was believed to hold the soul, and that one could communicate with the gods through it. Perhaps this is why ancient craftsmen chose larch, a wood that does not rot even after death. People who discovered the idol in the 19th century said it seemed to be looking at them, and many refused to work near it, believing it to be alive. Scientific analysis has shown that the idol was indeed covered in a special resin to protect it from moisture, but no one can explain how primitive people could have acquired such knowledge. Even more astonishing is the fact that similar shrines have been found in other places in Siberia: wooden figures, charred totems, stone circles with holes aligned with the solar cycles. All of this suggests that thousands of years ago, in these harsh lands, there existed a culture for which time was not a line, but a circle, where every point returns to the beginning. When the soft lights in the museum are turned on and the Shigar idol emerges from the darkness, it seems as if it is observing your every movement. Its gaze is unmoving, yet difficult to look away from. Some researchers say its proportions reflect the same divisions found in Egyptian and Mayan temples. Coincidence or connection? No one knows. But one thing is clear. This idol bears witness to the fact that human spirituality began long before the first cities. And perhaps it was here, among the Siberian swamps, that the question we are still seeking an answer to was first asked. Who created us and why? Todaiji Temple. In eastern Japan, among the green hills of the ancient city of Nara, stands a temple that resembles a mountain carved from wood and light. Its name is Todaiji, the Great Eastern Temple. Built over 300 years ago, it remains one of the largest wooden structures on the planet, but its secret lies not in its size. The secret of Todaiji lies in how it has withstood time, earthquakes, fires, and wars, maintaining its inner harmony, as if obeying not the physical, but the living laws of nature. The main hall, called the Daibutsuden, is astonishing in its scale. Wooden beams as tall as a 10-story building support the roof, beneath which resides a gigantic bronze statue of Vairocana Buddha, weighing over 500 tons. But how such a marvel was created in the 8th century when metallurgy had yet to develop the ability to smelt bronze in such vast quantities remains a mystery. Some scholars suggest the statue was cast in sections, while others believe a special technique was used, lost over time. Legends claim that during the casting, the very air above the city glowed with heat, and clouds resembling molten gold hung over the temple. Construction of Todaiji began at the behest of Emperor Shomu, who dreamed of uniting the country after a series of disasters. He commanded the creation of a temple housing a great Buddha equal to the sun. However, the simple dream of a monument quickly turned into a challenge. The country was exhausted, resources were running low, yet thousands of craftsmen continued to labor, lifting beams that were impossible to lift without modern cranes. Ancient texts mention that the timber for the construction was cut on the island of Shikoku, floated by sea, and then hauled by oxen over the mountains. More than 4,000 trees were used for the central hall alone, and not a single one has cracked under the weight of time. When you look at the temple, it seems as if it's breathing. Its walls bend slightly, its floors sway, and its columns aren't set into the ground. They float in their sockets like living joints. Thanks to this, Todaiji has survived dozens of earthquakes that destroyed surrounding cities. Yet the temple remains unscathed. Some researchers believe the Japanese intuitively understood the principle of living structure, where flexibility is more important than strength. This secret of their wooden architecture remains a mystery. Modern architecture has only recently realized that ideal stability lies not in immobility, but in the ability to move with the earth. A different kind of silence permeates the hall. Rays of light, filtering through the bars, create patterns on the floor that resemble breath. The air is filled with the scent of varnish and old wood, and somewhere above, a beam creaks, as if the temple were conversing with itself. The great Buddha sits in the center, his face calm, his eyes half closed, his lips slightly curved, like someone who knows something that needs no words. Pilgrims believe that if you approach the statue with a pure heart, you can hear a low ringing in your head, an echo of the power the ancient masters imbued into the metal. According to legend, when the Todaiji Buddha was first brought to life, the hall was filled with the sound of drums and chanting. Then the sun broke through the clouds, and a golden light fell upon the statue's face. The emperor wept, believing the god himself had answered him. Since then, the temple has become a symbol of enlightenment and peace, but also a reminder that great power always requires sacrifice. Entire forests were cleared to build Todaiji, and thousands of workers died of disease and hunger. Some monks say it is their souls that hold the temple walls to this day. Modern scientists, studying the structure, discovered that the temple's beams form a system similar to the frame of a musical instrument. When a strong wind blows, the entire hall emits a low hum, almost inaudible to the human ear. When wind waves pass through the roof, the temple seems to vibrate, creating a subtle harmony. Perhaps the ancient architects built it as an instrument of prayer, with each plank resonating in unison with the heavens. Today, Todaiji remains more than just a temple, but a living being. Its wood breathes, creaks, warms in the sun, and cools at night. Pilgrims entering touch a column at the entrance, where there's a small opening. It's said that if you squeeze through it, you'll be reborn purified. Children do this easily, adults rarely. But perhaps the point is that it's not the person who must pass through the narrow passage, but their fear. After all, Todaiji is not a temple built for worship. It's a place where a person comes face to face with themselves and understands that resilience lies not in stone, but in the soul, which can bend without breaking. Temple of the Emerald Buddha. Hidden in the heart of Bangkok, behind high white walls drenched in sunlight, lies a temple where monks claim a piece of heaven resides. It's called Wat Phra Kaeo, the Temple of the Emerald Buddha. For Thais, it's not just a shrine, but the heart of the nation, a place where an invisible force connects the destinies of people, kings, and gods. But if the legends are true, this temple is far older than the country itself, and the history of its statue stretches back centuries, where mystery intertwines with wonder. The Emerald Buddha is believed to have originated not in Thailand, but in the remote northern Indian city of Pataliputra over 2,000 years ago. According to legend, after the Buddha's death, the heavens were illuminated by a green flame, and from this light a statue was born, embodying his spiritual essence. It traveled the world, disappearing and reappearing, changing countries, eras, and peoples. It was first seen in Sri Lanka, then Cambodia, then Laos, and only many centuries later did it end up in Siam, where it found its final resting place. In fact, the statue isn't emerald at all. It's carved from a single piece of green jade, but its color is so rich and deep that it seems to glow from within. Less than a meter tall, it holds an inexplicable power. As soon as you enter the hall where the Buddha sits, the air becomes denser, and every sound seems to be muffled, absorbed by something invisible. People entering begin to speak more quietly, not because they're asked to, but because it's simply impossible to do otherwise. The temple where the statue now resides was built in the 18th century under King Rama I, founder of the Chakri dynasty. But the cult of the Emerald Buddha itself predates any state. For Thais, it is a symbol of power and destiny. There is an ancient custom. Only the king has the right to touch the statue and change its robes 3 times a year, during the rainy season, the hot season, and the cool season. This ritual is accompanied by prayers and silence, as it is believed that the fate of the entire country depends on the monarch's state of mind. When the Buddha is dressed in a new golden robe, the temple fills with the scent of incense and the sound of copper bowls, and the city seems to come to a standstill. However, the mystery of Wat Phra Kaeo lies beyond its rituals. The temple's architecture seems designed to conceal and simultaneously enhance a sense of wonder. The exterior walls are adorned with mirrored mosaics, reflecting light so that the temple seems composed not of stone, but of thousands of sunbeams. Each column is inlaid with glass and gold leaf, and the roofs are constructed in several tiers, creating a sense of movement. At dawn, the entire temple seems to float above the ground. The main hall is built to achieve perfect acoustic balance. When the monks chant morning prayers, the sound of their voices rises and returns as a soft echo, as if the walls themselves were repeating the mantras. Some researchers believe the builders deliberately selected the thickness of the bricks and the shape of the vaults, so that the sound within the hall would create a vibration that matches the human heart rate. This is why those meditating within feel as if their breathing is in sync with the breathing of the temple. But the true mystery lies in the statue itself. Scientists debate the origin of the material from which it is made. Analysis shows that the jade does not match known deposits in the region, and its structure points to an origin not found in India or the Himalayas. Some geologists speculate that it is not jade, but a rare mineral formed under unusually high pressure, perhaps even of cosmic origin. This has given rise to the legend that the Emerald Buddha is not a creation of man, but a gift from heaven, a meteorite carved by monks to enshrine the spirit of enlightenment. Ancient chronicles mention that anyone who tried to take the statue out of the country perished. In the 15th century, one Laotian ruler took the Buddha to his lands, and soon his city was destroyed by a flood. Another ruler, who dreamed of installing the statue in his own palace, was overthrown just a year later. Thais believed that the Emerald Buddha chooses its own location, and that its location is determined not by the will of man, but by fate. At night, when the temple is closed, a soft green glow is often seen above it. Scientists attribute this to the reflection of city lights, but monks say it's the Buddha's breathing, a reminder that holiness never sleeps. One day in 1940, during a thunderstorm, lightning struck the temple roof. All the surrounding buildings were damaged, but the hall where the Buddha sits remained unharmed. After this, even skeptics stopped talking about it being a coincidence. Wat Phra Kaeo cannot be perceived as a museum or an architectural landmark. It is a place where the material and the spiritual converge at a point that cannot be measured by instruments. As you enter the dome, the scent of resin and incense mingles with the warm air, and the walls seem to dissolve. The Emerald Buddha sits on a golden throne, surrounded by light, and his face reflects everything that a person brings: fear, hope, love. The statue's gaze seems to penetrate to the very depths, and then you understand. The mystery of the temple lies not in how it is built, but in how it inspires change in people. Perhaps this is why this temple is considered alive. Everyone who has once stood before the Emerald Buddha leaves a different person, quieter, softer, more peaceful. Its silence is louder than sound, and the sparkle of jade is a reminder that miracles are not always loud. Some things truly do fall from the sky, but they remain on earth, so that people remember that faith is a light that never fades, even in a world filled with darkness. Bhaganapati temples and sound domes of India? Deep in the south of India, where a humid wind carries the scent of the sea and spices, lie ancient temples capable of not only preserving prayer, but also transforming sound into living matter. They are called Bhaganapati temples, although this name itself encompasses a whole chain of shrines associated with the cult of the god Ganesha, the keeper of knowledge, origin, and the sonic order of the universe. These temples are not as famous as Kailash or Meenakshi, but it is here that one of the most astonishing mysteries of Indian architecture lies: resonant domes that emit sounds that cannot be explained by the laws of physics. Most Bhaganapati temples date back to around the 9th century, although some fragments are older. They are built of granite so dense that even modern tools barely leave a mark. Yet every column, every arch, and even the statues within possess a unique vibration. If you touch the stone, you can feel a faint hum, as if the temple were breathing. Scientists have measured the vibrations. The frequency matches the range of the human heart. Whether this is a coincidence, or whether the ancients knew something we don't understand, remains a mystery. The central halls of such temples feature a uniquely shaped dome, hemispherical, but with a downward-facing depression. When a person recites a mantra, the sound is reflected and returns to them greatly amplified. Pilgrims say that when repeated over and over, the name of Ganesha begins to resonate without human intervention. The echo seems to detach from its source and take on a life of its own, creating a vibration that makes the body tremble. Some researchers call this an acoustic mirror, an ancient sound manipulation technology unparalleled anywhere in the world. The temple architecture is no less striking. The ceilings are carved from solid slabs, joined together so tightly that even a thin needle cannot penetrate the seams. At the corners stand columns with hollow cores, within which sound propagates in a spiral. During rituals, priests strike bronze bowls, and the vibrations passing through the floor seem to raise a light mist. Those standing inside feel the air around them become dense, as if filled with waves, and for a moment, the sense of time disappears. Some believe these domes serve not for prayer, but for concentrating energy. Ancient texts mention that, for the ancient Indians, sound was not just a vibration, but the very essence of the universe. From sound everything arose, said the Vedas, and perhaps the Bhaganapati temples were places where this idea was literally embodied. Each dome was tuned to a specific frequency, corresponding to a specific chakra, the human energy center. Thus, the temple became not just the home of a deity, but an instrument capable of tuning the human body to harmony with the world. Local legends tell of a master craftsman named Somashanda, who supposedly heard the music of the stars. He used no measuring instruments. He simply stood under the sky, listened to the silence, and drew lines in the sand. Domes were built along these lines, and when the last stone was placed, the wind began to sound in the temple. It is said that Somashanda disappeared when his creation was complete, dissolving into the sound he himself had created. Modern acousticians have attempted to reproduce the effect of these halls. They've recorded vibrations and analyzed the spectrum, but the instruments only capture a fraction of what's happening. Some sounds only occur when people are inside, as if the temple's very being reacts to its presence. This phenomenon is called bioacoustic response. Scientists acknowledge that the stone domes act like living membranes, detecting breathing, footsteps, even the heartbeat. But not everything defies explanation. There are recordings made at night when the temple was empty. They reveal a soft, low hum, as if someone were singing underground. There are indeed underground corridors around the temples, narrow, damp, and extending deep into the granite. Some of them end in round chambers laid out in a spiral. Archaeologists speculate that priests may have meditated there to hear the sounds of the earth. What's also interesting is that these temples have almost no written inscriptions. There are no names of the masters, no indication of who each shrine is dedicated to. It's as if the creators wanted everything that needed to be known to be heard, and perhaps this is precisely the meaning of their silence. It's not empty, it's full. As dawn breaks over India, the sun's rays fall on the polished granite, filling the temple with a soft light. The sound of the bowl beneath the dome transforms into a vibration that travels through the body. Pilgrims close their eyes, feeling everything around them dissolve into a single tone. And then it seems as if the Bhaganapati temple wasn't built by humans. It simply materialized where sound found its home. Perhaps the ancients knew what we are only beginning to understand. The universe is not silent, it sings. We just need to learn to listen. And in these ancient halls, where the granite vibrates with breath and the light fades in the curves of the dome, we can hear what defies words, the pure sound of existence, which lingers even when all else falls silent. Temple of White Clouds. In Beijing, behind an ancient wall covered in moss and jasmine, stands a temple that seems to capture the very breath of time. It's called Baiyunguan, the Temple of White Clouds, and for Taoists, it's not just a place of worship, but a point of connection between worlds, where one can hear the movement of the sky. At first glance, it seems calm, almost ordinary. Red gates, dragons on the roofs, quiet courtyards where bamboo rustles. But as you enter deeper, the air changes, becoming thick and still, as if someone is watching you from the very silence. The White Cloud Temple was founded in the 11th century during the Liao dynasty, but locals claim it is only a later form of a much older sanctuary that existed long before the advent of writing. The oldest Taoist texts describe a complex of halls hidden here, underground, built by masters who used neither blueprints nor measurements. Their teachings were based on the idea of the breath of the world, the flow of energy passing through the earth and sky. It was around these invisible lines, the flows of qi, that the temple was built, as an instrument capturing the breath of the earth. Archaeological research has indeed uncovered a network of underground corridors beneath the temple, extending to a depth of over 20 meters. Some of them end in sealed chambers where oxygen levels are extremely low, but the temperature and humidity are constant, as if the space were self-regulating. No one knows the purpose of these chambers. According to one theory, they were meditative cells for extended solitude, where a person could spend months without light or sound, seeking to hear their own heartbeat in the rhythm of the earth. Another theory is that these were places where ancient masters performed rituals invoking the spirits of the elements, because strange fluctuations in the magnetic field are still detectable below, beneath the stone slabs. The White Cloud Temple is the only place in China where rituals based on ancient texts passed down orally are still performed today. Monks wear coarse linen robes and greet each dawn in the Great Hall of the Heavenly Emperor. As the first rays of sunlight touch the gilded statues, they begin chanting an ancient prayer. The sounds rise upward, as if the sky itself were responding. At this moment, a light mist rises from the rooftops, and the temple truly lives up to its name. It is indeed shrouded in white clouds. The main secret of Baiyunguan lies in its architecture. The builders created a system of invisible channels that conduct air between the halls. When incense is lit in one room, the aroma appears in another within minutes, as if the temple were breathing. At certain times, when the wind passes through special openings under the eaves, a barely audible sound, reminiscent of a low chant, is emitted within. Scientists have attempted to explain this phenomenon by the peculiarities of the ventilation system, but monks are convinced it is the voice of the mountains, speaking to those who know how to listen. According to legend, the temple was built by a man who could control the clouds. His name was Liu Dongbin, one of the 8 immortals of the Taoist pantheon. They say he would come to this place every spring and stand on the roof of an old house, gazing at the sky until the clouds gathered above him. Then he would disappear, dissolving into light. And years later, a new temple arose on this site. When the monks completed the temple, they found a stone slab in the center of the courtyard, engraved with the words, "Here dwells the breath of the world. He who hears it will understand the path." Sometimes at night, glowing balls can be seen in the main courtyard. They are called shenki, a manifestation of spiritual energy. Scientists have recorded them on video and attempted to explain them as electrical discharges in the air, but the phenomenon only occurs on certain dates: the spring equinox and mid-autumn, when the sun and moon are in balance. On these nights, monks remain awake, sitting in meditation, believing that it is then that the boundaries between worlds become thinner, and the White Cloud Temple opens a gate leading to another level of perception. In one of the back halls stands an ancient bronze urn, engraved with spiral symbols reminiscent of galaxies. It's believed that if you touch its rim and close your eyes, you can see images of the future. Tourists call this a suggestion, but those who have experienced it report a strange sensation, as if someone is standing behind you, breathing. The monks explain it simply. A temple is not a place, but a state. It exists only when a person is ready to experience it. Baiyunguan has survived wars, revolutions, and destruction, but each time it rose from the ashes. When its walls were nearly destroyed in the 20th century, monks hid the statues in underground corridors, and not a single one was damaged. After restoration, the temple looked just as it had 1,000 years ago, as if not a day had passed. Some believe the secret lies in the unusual stonework. The stones are joined in a special way that allows the Earth's energy to flow freely through them. Even modern builders who have studied the structure admit they cannot replicate this effect. Today, when tourists enter the gates of the White Cloud Temple, they see an ordinary world: fountains, a garden with a pond, the subtle aroma of incense. But as soon as they stop by the old bell and touch its edge, the sound carries so far that it seems the vibration penetrates the earth itself. And then it becomes clear. The temple is alive. It hears footsteps, breathing, thoughts, but does not respond with words. Its language is air, light, and silence. They say that if you spend the night under its roof, you can see clouds descending right into the courtyard, sliding between the columns and disappearing into the stone. Perhaps it's just fog, or perhaps it's a reminder that there are still places in the world where the invisible still breathes alongside us. The Temple of the White Clouds is not a testament to faith or an architectural monument. It is a reminder that silence can be louder than any sound, and that those who learn to hear it approach the very heart of the world. Shwedagon Pagoda. On Singutara Hill, above the bustling city of Yangon, rises a pagoda that dazzles not only with its golden light, but also with a sense of holiness that is conveyed without words. It is called Shwedagon, the sanctuary of jewels. And for the people of Myanmar, it is more sacred than a crown, more important than time, and higher than any throne. The majestic stupa is visible for miles, but the closer you get, the stronger the feeling of standing before something that does not belong to this world. According to legend, the pagoda was built over 2,500 years ago, long before Buddha Shakyamuni attained enlightenment. Monks say that 8 of Buddha's hairs were given to merchant brothers from Burma, who built a shrine here to house them. However, historians claim that the first structures on this site may have appeared in the 6th century BC, and the temple's current appearance took on much later, during the time of King Dhammaseti. And yet, a strange coincidence remains. Archaeological research shows that beneath the modern foundation there are indeed ancient layers, even stone rings older than all known structures in the region. The temple's main stupa is covered in 70 tons of gold, collected from donations over the centuries. But the gold is only the outer shell. Beneath it, according to texts, lies the heart of the pagoda, a sacred reliquary containing not only a hair of the Buddha, but also an ancient crystal, which, according to eyewitnesses, glows even in complete darkness. Its origin is unknown. Monks say it is the eye of the world, a gift fallen from heaven, found by a shepherd and brought to the foot of the hill. Scholars consider this story a beautiful myth, but no one has explained why faint fluctuations of light, independent of external sources, are detected beneath the pagoda's dome. The entire structure of the Shwedagon is designed to reflect the idea of the cosmos. The base symbolizes the earth, the dome, the sky, and the spire, the axis connecting the human with the divine. At the very top is a crown-shaped spire encrusted with thousands of precious stones, sapphires, rubies, emeralds, and one giant diamond star facing the sun. When the morning rays touch the spire, the temple seems to light up from within, and thousands of gold plates begin to vibrate, creating a pulsating effect. But there's also something invisible to the naked eye. Beneath the pagoda's surface, according to the monks, lies a network of hidden passages leading to the buried stupa, an ancient core around which new layers were built over the centuries. Ground-penetrating radar does indeed reveal cavities at a depth of 20 meters, but no entrances have been found. Some believe these are the remains of old foundations. Others believe they contain something not intended for human observation. It's believed that every attempt to uncover the lower levels has ended in disaster. Builders fell ill, equipment broke, and the stone crumbled to dust, as if protecting the secret. At sunset, the Shwedagon transforms into a living flame. Those sitting at its base don't speak. They simply watch. A warm breeze sways the flags, and the ringing of tiny bells creates an invisible music, mingling with the rustling of clothes and the breathing of thousands. Pilgrims circle the temple, holding candles, and each drop of wax, falling to the ground, seems to soak in, leaving a trace of prayer. Here, there are no boundaries between religion and air. Everything becomes a single stream of light, scent, and sound. When night falls, the stupa doesn't darken. It glows with a soft, even light, as if preserving the remnants of the day's sunlight. Scientists attribute this to the properties of gold and the angle of reflection, but locals are certain the light comes from within, from a crystal hidden in the heart of the pagoda. Sometimes during thunderstorms, a spherical glow appears above the spire, a phenomenon that photographers have been capturing for decades but cannot explain. It's called the breath of the relic. Shwedagon became not only a religious but also a spiritual center for Myanmar. In times of trouble, people would climb here to seek heavenly protection, and it was believed that if they heard a gong-like sound while praying, they were heard. Interestingly, during strong winds, the temple actually emits a low tone from the movement of thousands of suspended bowls and bells. Sometimes the sound merges into a single hum, and it seems as if the mountain itself is singing. In the 20th century, as wars raged around, the Shwedagon remained untouched. Shells fell nearby, but the stupa suffered no serious cracks. For the Myanmar people, this was a sign. The pagoda was protected not only by prayers, but by the earth itself. Geologists confirm that Singatara Hill indeed rests on a special rock. It dampens vibrations, as if protecting everything above. Today, Shwedagon is not just an ancient temple, but a living organism. When you enter the grounds, time seems to slow down. The golden steps reflect the sun, your eyes fill with light, and in that moment, the distance between past and present disappears. At night, when smoke from thousands of candles rises above the pagoda, it seems as if everything around you is not a temple, but the breath of the world, frozen in the form of gold. And somewhere deep, beneath layers of centuries and prayers, that very crystal continues to shimmer, quiet, alive, like a heart that never stops beating. Temples of Preah Vihear and Bang Mealia. On the border of Cambodia and Thailand, where the jungle is as dense as night and the silence can be heard, stand two temples, seemingly carved from time itself. One, Preah Vihear, perched on a sheer cliff. The other, Bang Mealia, immersed in vines and tree roots. They are separated by kilometers, but connected by something invisible, a shared breath of antiquity, the scent of rain-soaked stone, and the sense of the presence of something older than all kingdoms and peoples. Preah Vihear, the Temple of the Holy Mountain, is built atop the Dangrek Plateau. Its walls, like an extension of the cliff, rise straight into the clouds. They say that on clear days, the whole of Cambodia can be seen from here, but the true spectacle is not for the eyes, but for the heart. Before the entrance, a path of 5 terraces begins, each symbolizing a stage of purification. As you walk this path, the air becomes heavier, as if the memory of centuries is dissolved in it. Scholars date the construction of Preah Vihear to the 11th century, a time when the Khmer Empire was at the height of its power. However, the oldest foundations found beneath the temple date back to earlier eras. The structure's geometry is no coincidence. The temple's axis is aligned strictly north-south, and the angles of the terraces coincide with the azimuths of the sun during the equinoxes. The terraces themselves create the illusion of a staircase leading not to the mountaintop, but beyond the horizon. Local monks say that anyone who journeys all the way to the final sanctuary must leave everything earthly, thoughts, desires, even their name, at the entrance. Only then will the temple accept them as its own. The most mysterious thing about Preah Vihear isn't its architecture, but its location. No one can explain why a sanctuary was built in a place where even modern vehicles struggle to reach. Some believe the temple was an observatory, and it was from this height that ancient priests observed the movement of the stars. Others believe the temple stood at the intersection of lines of force, invisible energy flows known to the inhabitants of the ancient East. This is supported by the fact that even today compasses here behave strangely. The needle trembles, as if subject to a different gravity. At night, when fog rises over the cliff, the temple seems to float in the air. Tourists report seeing figures in ancient robes walking along the walls and disappearing in the moonlight. The monks merely smile. They're the guardians. They haven't left. Hidden away 100 kilometers from Preah Vihear is Bang Mealia, a ghost temple built around the same time, but now enshrined in the forest. There are no paths, no restoration, only stone intertwined with living roots. Enormous trees grow directly from the walls, enveloping them like an embrace. Roots as thick as a human body descend the steps, penetrate windows, and hold the slabs together. It seems as if they were removed, the temple would disappear along with them. Bang Mealia was built according to the same plan as Angkor Wat, but here one senses something different, a wild primordial spirit. Here, nature is not an enemy, but an ally. Wood and stone are intertwined, forming a single flesh. Inside, it is dark and cool, the air filled with the smell of damp and dust. A ray of light, filtering through cracks in the roof, falls upon ancient bas-reliefs depicting scenes of Shiva's cosmic dance and legends of the beginning of the world. Scholars still debate why the temple was abandoned. Some claim it was destroyed by an earthquake, others that it was a victim of religious change when the cult of Vishnu gave way to the worship of Buddha. But locals say otherwise. The temple was abandoned because it had fulfilled its purpose. It was built to contain the power emanating from underground, and when the danger passed, the priests departed, leaving the walls to the forest. There are other stories about light emanating from underground chambers. In the 1940s, archaeologists descending into one of the tunnels reported seeing a stone emitting a soft glow, but when they approached it, the light went out. Later, the passages collapsed, closing access. Today, Bengmealea reminds us how nature preserves what man has left behind. The temple is not destroyed, it sleeps. When the wind blows, the leaves and roots make a soft rustling sound, like breathing. Sometimes it seems as if a low ringing is heard somewhere deep within, as if the heart of the stone is still beating. Preah Vihear and Bengmealea are two opposing images of the same truth. One reaches for the sky, the other descends into the earth. One speaks with the voice of the wind, the other with the whisper of leaves. And perhaps this is precisely their secret. The ancient Khmer knew that there is a balance between the sky and the root, between ascent and descent. Anyone who understood this found their way home, to a place where temples are not built with hands because they already exist within each of us. Bayon Temple. In the very heart of ancient Angkor, where tree roots intertwine with stone paths and the air is filled with the scent of rotting leaves and thyme, stands a temple that seems to watch over all who dare enter. It is called Bayon, the Temple of Smiles. But these smiles are not human. They are eternal, motionless, cold, and they convey not joy, but a knowledge too ancient to be either good or evil. Dozens of gigantic faces gaze in all directions, as if guarding the boundaries of a world where man and God have not yet separated. The Bayon was built in the late 12th century by order of King Jayavarman VII, a ruler who believed that power and faith could merge into one. He dreamed of creating a temple that would reflect not a god, but man himself, ascended to the level of divinity. Thus, the Bayon became not just a sanctuary, but a stone embodiment of the idea of enlightenment, where every smile on the face of Buddha Lokeshvara symbolizes awakened consciousness. However, over time, these smiles became a mystery, evoking anxiety. From the outside, the temple appears chaotic. Towers rise one above the other like waves of stone. Corridors twist, lost in shadow, creating the feeling of walking not forward, but within time itself. Not a single wall is at a right angle, and the entire building resembles a labyrinth where every step makes you doubt reality. Architects still cannot understand how the ancient masters were able to construct such a complex structure without calculations or blueprints. But the strangest thing is the sounds. When you stand in the center of Bayon, you hear a whisper, as if the stone is speaking. It is not the wind, not an echo. The sound emerges from the space itself, as if the walls retain the memory of every word spoken here over 8 centuries. Inside the temple, almost complete darkness reigns. Only narrow shafts of light filter through the patterned windows, falling on the stone faces looking down. These faces are enormous, 4 meters tall, carved with astonishing precision, but each has a slightly different expression. Some are calm, others seem to smile, still others are filled with sadness. There is a theory that these are not images of gods, but rather Jayavarman himself, in the guise of Buddha, immortalized in stone as a mediator between heaven and earth. If so, then Bayon is not a temple, but a stone portrait of the soul of an entire era. Scientists have discovered that the arrangement of the Bayon towers is not random. They form a spiral, directed inward, toward the central sanctuary where a statue of Buddha once stood, vanished during the religious wars. Nothing remains but a stone pedestal, but even now, standing in this place, one feels a subtle vibration, as if the temple still retains the presence of the one who was its heart. Researchers have recorded magnetic anomalies in this hall. The needles of the instruments deflect, and the sound of footsteps fades, as if the air becomes thicker. Kilometers of reliefs are carved into the walls of Bayon. They tell not myths, but real life, scenes of battles, hunts, markets, dances. This is a rare case where an ancient temple depicts not gods, but people. You can make out a fisherman hauling in his nets, a woman with a basket, a child reaching out to his father. But the longer you look, the stronger the feeling that all these figures are not just images, but traces of living, once existing souls. Some researchers have noticed a strange effect. Under certain lighting, the faces in the bas-reliefs seem to move, as if the stone were breathing. The monks who live nearby say that Bayon cannot be studied like a building. It is a living being that sleeps and awakens with the sun. In the morning, its faces appear soft and bright, but in the evening, they become stern and gloomy. It is believed that the temple absorbs the emotions of those who enter. People with pure thoughts feel a sense of lightness, while those carrying fear or anger hear strange sounds, like the rustle of footsteps behind them. Tourists have repeatedly reported photographing empty corridors, only to find shadows and blurry silhouettes appearing in the pictures. At night, Bayon becomes a labyrinth of shadows. The moon, reflecting off the damp stone, brings the faces on the towers to life. Sometimes they seem to move, turning to follow a person. Locals avoid the temple after sunset. They say the spirits of the stone awaken then. Old recordings by French archaeologists mention strange sounds recorded in the central tower. A low tone, like a pulse, can be heard on the audio tape. Scientists have attributed it to the wind, but monks are certain it is the breathing of Bayon, its heart, which has been beating since the temple was built. Legend has it that Jayavarman VII dedicated the Bayon to his mother, who died many years before his ascension to the throne. He wanted to create a place where the spirits of the dead could find peace, and where everyone who entered would feel the presence of those who had passed on. Perhaps this is why the faces on the towers appear so different. They are not one Buddha, but thousands of those who once lived in his shadow. During excavations beneath the Bayon, traces of an ancient foundation were discovered, perfectly aligned blocks forming a closed circle. This may be the oldest part of the complex, built before Angkor. Geophysical surveys revealed a void beneath the central tower, a nearly spherical chamber extending several dozen meters deep. Attempts to penetrate it have been unsuccessful. Tunnels have collapsed, instruments have failed, and magnetic surges have been detected within. Some believe that the temple's heart is hidden there, a crystal or metal object through which the Bayon hears the world. When dawn touches the spires, Bayon comes alive. Mist creeps between the towers, and the first rays of sun touch faces, illuminating them one by one. Stone eyes fill with light, and the smiles seem real. At this moment, the entire temple seems to breathe, slowly, measuredly, calmly. You stand among these smiles and understand. They are not meant to please. They are a reminder that once people believed that God and man are one, that the world can be held together if you smile back. And then Bayon ceases to be a mystery. It becomes a mirror in which everyone sees themselves, with the face they wear when no one is looking. Underground Temple of Ellora. On the western edge of India, in the dusty hills of Maharashtra, lies a subterranean complex that captivates even those who have witnessed the world's greatest wonders. Ellora is more than just a collection of cave shrines. It is a stone city carved from a mountain, where Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism coexist within the same rock. But its most enigmatic heart remains the Kailasanath temple, the very same Kailas mentioned earlier, which itself has become a symbol of the impossible. Here, deeper in the shadows, lie even more ancient and inexplicable shrines, carved from basalt with a precision unachievable even by modern instruments. Ellora consists of 34 temples, carved by hand from the rock. The work was carried out from the top down, a technique requiring an absolute understanding of the volume and structure of the stone. The slightest error would have caused the entire structure to collapse, but it was not destroyed. Every hall, column, arch, staircase, and vault was crafted as if not by man, but by a machine controlled by an unknown intelligence. When archaeologists first realized the scale of the rock excavation, it became clear, to create Kailash alone, over 200,000 tons of stone had to be removed. And all this without iron tools, without gunpowder, without technology. Scientists still don't know how the ancient masters achieved such perfect symmetry. The levels of the underground corridors are positioned with millimeter precision. Looking at the vaults, they appear smooth, as if they weren't hewn, but scorched by light. Some researchers have suggested some kind of thermal method was used, perhaps exposure to high temperatures. But there are no signs of charring on the walls. There's only a smooth sheen, as if the stone had been melted from the inside. In the central part of Ellora are caves rarely visited even by monks. It's dark and cool, and the sound of footsteps doesn't echo. The ceilings are carved into domes, perfectly reflecting sound. When a person utters a short phrase, the voice suddenly becomes polyphonic, as if hundreds of invisible beings were standing around you. This effect of acoustic reflection is too precise to be a coincidence. Perhaps the ancient builders created temples not only as places of worship, but also as resonant devices, amplifying human speech, transforming it into something more, a vibration capable of interacting with space. In some halls of Ellora, the walls are decorated with reliefs depicting scenes not found in any other temple in India. There, one can see figures standing near strange structures resembling devices with round discs and rods. Researchers debate whether these are symbolic or a genuine recollection of technologies long forgotten by humanity. It's impossible to say, but the images themselves appear not like myths, but like observations transmitted through time. The most mysterious part of the complex is the Cave of Silence. It is located deeper than the others and has no altars, only smooth walls, floor, and ceiling. You can't even hear your own breathing. People who have visited report that time seems to disappear. One researcher, after spending less than 10 minutes in the room, claimed to feel the air thickening around him, making it difficult to breathe, as if the space were sucking away energy. Equipment recorded a drop in temperature and a weak electromagnetic field, although there shouldn't have been any source of it. Local legends say Ellora was created not by humans, but by divine carvers who came from afar, leaving behind knowledge inaccessible to posterity. It is said that 3 more levels extend beneath the complex, descending downwards, but they are buried under stone and sand. Some tunnels lead to underground pools where, according to eyewitnesses, a steady hum can be heard, like the breathing of a mountain. Archaeologists attempted to penetrate them, but their equipment malfunctioned and the lights dimmed, as if the site itself refused to be revealed. There's an ancient myth that the Ellora temple was carved by sound. According to legend, a sage who received a gift from Shiva could cause the stone to vibrate and crumble under the influence of mantras. He didn't break the mountain, but rather opened it from within, releasing the form that already existed within. It sounds like poetry, but when you stand before the perfectly smooth wall, the tale seems less improbable. After all, even modern engineers admit, it's impossible to replicate Ellora today. When night falls and the sun sinks behind the ridge, the temple is plunged into darkness, but it's not frightening. In fact, it seems alive. Bats fly from the ceilings, their fluttering creating a strange whisper-like noise. In the moonlight, the basalt walls take on a metallic sheen, seeming not stone but metal eroded by time. Then you realize, Ellora is not just a temple, but a frozen trace of some power that man has only managed to capture for a moment. Travelers say that if you enter there at dawn, when the first rays of light touch the entrance, you can hear a sound like breathing. It lasts only a few seconds, but afterward, your heart begins to beat in unison with something vast, ancient, and eternal. Perhaps it's the mountain itself, or perhaps it's the memory of those who once, many millennia ago, carved a path to heaven in the stone, leaving in each vault, not a prayer, but a testimony that man is capable of speaking to eternity, if only he learns to listen to the silence. Meenakshi Temple. In the south of India, in the bustling and evergreen city of Madurai, stands a temple that resembles more a living organism than a building. It is called Meenakshi Amman, the temple of the goddess with fish-like eyes, who, according to legend, can see even in the dark. Gopuram towers rise above the city, adorned with thousands of vibrant figures, gods, demons, musicians, animals, and they seem to breathe, move, and converse with one another, guarding the boundaries between earth and sky. But behind this dazzling beauty lies a mystery in which sound, space, and time merge into one. The Meenakshi Temple was built many centuries ago, but its exact origins are lost in the mists of time. Historians date the first construction to the 13th century, but ancient chronicles say the sanctuary existed long before that, and its halls were erected not by royal decree, but by the direction of the stars. The temple seems to grow like a living being. Each century brought new courtyards, galleries, and towers, all united into a single harmonious structure, where every column resonates, every passage has its own frequency, and the space, if you stand still for long enough, begins to vibrate. The interior of the temple resembles a labyrinth. You walk through corridors carved with ornamental patterns, and you feel your footsteps echo, but not like in ordinary buildings. The echo here is alive. It seems to follow you, slightly delayed, as if someone were walking beside you. This is no illusion. Ancient architects constructed the halls so that sound waves reflect in a special way, creating a sense of presence. In the center is the famous Hall of 1,000 Pillars, and each pillar, when struck, emits its own sound. Some sing like strings, others respond with a low bass. As pilgrims pass through the hall, the gentle sound of footsteps turns into a melody, as if the temple itself were playing. Scientists call this a phenomenon of acoustic architecture, but for locals, it's simpler. The temple is alive. It sings, breathes, and speaks to those who come with an open heart. There's a belief that the temple's sounds have the power to heal. When people touch the columns, the vibrations seem to penetrate the body, aligning its rhythm with the rhythm of the earth. Some monks claim that certain frequencies align with the beating of the human heart, and that's why people feel calm in the temple, even if they arrive in turmoil. The main sanctuary is dedicated to the goddess Meenakshi and her husband, Shiva, who appeared here in the guise of Sundarar. Their union symbolizes the balance of male and female principles, energy and stillness, movement and contemplation. Every year, the temple hosts a grand festival to commemorate their marriage. The streets are filled with lights, the ringing of bells, dancing, and the scent of jasmine. During these days, according to legend, the goddess herself descends upon the city to bless the people. But for those who are attentive, the temple speaks of more than just joy. It preserves the memory of the forces that once controlled sound and light as we control words. Deep within the complex is a chamber accessible only to priests. There, behind stone doors, lies the singing column, a smooth pillar that emits a sound simply by approaching it. This isn't a vibration of the air or hidden mechanisms. The column seems to respond to human presence. The calmer the breathing, the purer the sound. Once, scientists attempted to measure the frequency. The instruments detected vibrations that didn't correspond to any known wave. For a brief moment, the space around truly began to resonate, and then all became silent, as if the temple didn't want to reveal its secret. Archaeologists have noticed that the Meenakshi temple is located at the intersection of three ancient energy lines, invisible currents running underground. Their direction coincides with the orientation of the main towers. This is no coincidence. Ancient architects drew on knowledge of the movement of underground water and magnetic fields. Perhaps this is why the temple never cracks. Despite heat, humidity, and earthquakes, its walls seem to breathe. At night, when the crowds depart and the corridors are plunged into silence, the temple changes. Lamplight reflects on the gilded surface, and the columns seem to whisper. The air is filled with the scent of flowers and stone dust. Birds fall asleep beneath the dome, and only a distant hum, like breathing, can be heard. At such moments, it seems as if the temple is remembering its history. Hundreds of years of prayers, footsteps, sounds, and perhaps that is why it is called alive. It doesn't just stand, it remembers. There's an ancient legend that beneath Meenakshi there's a subterranean chamber that reaches to the center of the earth. It houses the sound stone, the heart of the temple, which emits a vibration that maintains balance in the world. No one knows if this is true, but the monks are certain. If this sound were to disappear, the world would lose its harmony. Therefore, every day from dawn to dusk, the temple is filled with chanting, bells, and mantras. People come to hear not divine words, but the universe itself, resonating within the stone. When the first rays of sun touch the domes in the morning, the temple seems to come alive anew. Thousands of figures on the towers glow golden, birds rise into the sky, and the bells begin their endless ringing. And it seems that somewhere deep, beneath all these sounds, a single unbroken tone resounds, the very one that connects earth and sky, light and darkness, life and eternity. This is the breath of Meenakshi, an eternal reminder that the divine never leaves. It simply learns to resonate differently, through stone, through silence, through us. Sunken temples off the coast of Tamil Nadu. Off the southeastern shores of India, where the waves of the Bay of Bengal lap the sand with the cumulative force of centuries, ruins lie beneath the water, the origins of which are debated by archaeologists and mythologists around the world. Here, Off the coast of Mahabalipuram lie what local fishermen call the Seven Pagodas, ancient temples that sank when the sea rose and engulfed the entire city. But, by a strange twist of fate, one temple survives, standing on dry land, a living reminder that everything else truly existed. And now, when the storms recede, the outlines of walls and columns occasionally rise from the depths, as if the earth itself were seeking to reclaim its past. According to legend, the city of Mahabalipuram was built by King Bala, a man who defied the gods. He erected 7 wondrous temples of white granite, shining so brightly that their light blinded the celestials. To punish this man's pride, the sea rose and swallowed everything except one temple, shore, meaning coastal. The remaining 6 are said to now rest underwater, but their shadows can still be seen when the sea recedes. For a long time, this was considered a myth, until, in the early 21st century, after a powerful tsunami, the waters actually receded hundreds of meters, revealing gigantic stone blocks laid in a precise geometric pattern. Among them, archaeologists found fragments of columns, arches, and carved panels depicting gods identical to those adorning the surviving temple on land. Underwater exploration revealed that beneath the sand lies an entire complex, extending kilometers into the depths. The architecture of the underwater temples is astonishing. Despite millennia underwater, the stone walls retain sharp angles and clean lines. Some are covered in coral, but beneath them, delicate ornamentation depicting scenes from ancient Indian epics is visible. Researchers believe the complex was built no later than the 5th century BC, making it older than most known temples in India. But most astonishingly, the plan of the underwater structures matches the star map of the sky over this coastline at that time. Each pagoda corresponds to a specific constellation, as if the entire city were a reflection of the cosmos. Some scholars see this as evidence of the existence of an ancient civilization, known in legend as Kumari Kanda, a land swallowed by the ocean many thousands of years ago. It is mentioned in Tamil texts which say that when the sea swallowed the sacred cities, people migrated inland, taking with them knowledge of the stars and temple architecture. Perhaps it was these refugees who built the great sanctuaries of South India. Dives to sunken temples are rare due to strong currents, poor visibility, and the risk of collapse. But those who have made the trek are met with a sight they will never forget. Columns lie on the seabed, arranged in neat rows, as if they had been left there yesterday. Steps lead down to a chamber where a massive pedestal, presumably once occupied by a statue, can be seen. When a flashlight touches the stone, it seems alive. A thin iridescent film shimmers on the surface, as if the temple were still breathing. There's a stunning silence underwater. Even the sound of one's own breathing in scuba gear seems alien. Sometimes divers hear a faint hum, not from the instruments or the waves. It's a low, drawn-out sound, as if coming from deep within the rock. It can't be recorded. On tape, only noise remains. Those who have heard it firsthand say it's like a mantra, and that afterward, sleep brings no peace, as if the calling continues even in the dream. Archaeologists have attempted to explain the complex's origins from a scientific perspective. Perhaps the city was destroyed by an earthquake and then slowly sank beneath the waves due to erosion. But none of these hypotheses explains why the builders chose a site so close to the sea, on a shifting sand platform. Only ancient legends offer an answer. The temple was intended to stand where the sky is reflected in the water, because that's where the boundary between worlds becomes thinnest. Today, the shore temple, the only one remaining above water, stands right at the surf line, and every evening the sun sets behind its spire, painting the sea copper gold. Waves crash against the stone walls, and spray flies into the air, as if time were trying to reclaim its place. Inside, everything is simple, a small sanctuary, the scent of salt and old stone. But when you sit there, you hear not the sound of the ocean, but the echo of something greater, as if the world itself were breathing through the water. Perhaps one day technology will allow us to fully explore the sunken pagodas. Or perhaps this will never happen, because the temple doesn't need to be found. It already speaks to everyone who stands on the shore and gazes at the horizon, where water and sky merge into one. And then it becomes clear. What we call the past hasn't disappeared. It has simply sunk to the bottom, observing us through the depths of time, awaiting the day when we once again learn to see not with our eyes, but with our hearts. Villabhaja is a lost sanctuary in the mountains of Ladakh. Hidden high in the Himalayas, where the air is as clear as ice and the sun is dazzling even in the shade, lie ruins that won't be found on any tourist map. Locals call this place Villabhaja, House of the Wind. It's hard to believe that a temple once stood here. Now, only broken columns jut from the stone and dark openings leading underground. But take a few steps inside, and the feeling of ordinary ruins disappears. A low tone seems to fill the air, unlike wind or echo. It's a hum emanating from the mountain itself, steady and unceasing, like a heart beating underground. According to Ladakh legends, the Villabhaja temple was built by people who came from the north long before the first Tibetan monasteries. They called themselves guardians of the breath and believed that sound could maintain the balance of the world. Their sanctuaries were built not for prayer, but for silence, a special state in which one could hear the movement of invisible currents. The Villabhaja temple was believed to stand at the confluence of the winds of three valleys, and it was there that the earth conversed with the sky. When archaeologists arrived here in the 20th century, they discovered that beneath the mountain there was indeed a system of corridors leading to a circular hall with perfect acoustics. The walls weren't decorated with images of gods, but with patterns of spirals and waves, as if recording the movement of air. In the center was a stone disc, about 3 meters in diameter, resembling a huge drum, but without any percussion marks. Instruments showed that the slightest vibration in the hall caused the stone to vibrate and emit infrasound, a frequency that the human ear can't detect, but the body feels as a slight vibration. People standing nearby reported feeling warmth, as if someone was standing behind them and breathing. Scientists have attempted to explain the phenomenon through natural causes, geological faults, wind fluctuations, but no hypothesis has explained the architectural coincidences. The entire temple seems designed as an instrument that transforms air into energy. The floor is slightly inclined, the walls are covered with a smooth layer of an unknown mineral composition resembling an alloy of quartz and copper, and the ceiling is designed so that every sound wave reflects in the center of the hall, amplifying itself. If a person stands at this point and pronounces the sound Om, the hum becomes almost physical. It fills the chest, arms, and the air around, and it seems as if the temple itself is echoing this sound from within. Monks from a nearby monastery say Villabhaja shouldn't be considered a ruin. They are certain the temple isn't destroyed, but simply dormant. People here once knew how to communicate with the mountains and the wind, but they lost their inner hearing and left. Since then, the temple has waited for someone to hear it again. At night, especially in the colder months, fog does rise above the valley, and a strange low hum can be heard within it. People who have camped nearby have reported feeling a slight pressure on their chests, as if an invisible wave were passing through their bodies. Some even claim to see a faint blue glow on the stones, as if the mountain itself were breathing. In recent decades, interest in Villabhaja has increased. Several expeditions attempted to conduct 3D scanning of the underground chambers, but the equipment malfunctioned. The equipment lost signal, and the laser images were blurred, as if someone had tampered with the process. Geophysicists hypothesized that beneath the temple lay a natural cavity filled with quartz crystals capable of amplifying earth vibrations. However, when one expedition's instruments detected a resonance that coincided with a change in the magnetic field, the research was halted. No one dared to proceed further. Locals still bring offerings to the rubble, oil lamps and pieces of cloth. They believe the wind spirit is alive, and that if treated with respect, it will bring clarity of mind. Sometimes monks from the Himalayas come here, sit at the entrance to the underground chamber, and chant ancient mantras. Their voices echo, and the entire slope begins to vibrate, as if responding. When the sun sets behind the peaks, the Villabhaja temple takes on a copper hue. The shadows lengthen, and the air seems thicker. Then, suddenly, you begin to feel that these are not just stones around you, but something more. As if the mountain preserves the memory of those who lived here, waiting for people to learn to listen again, not look. The Temple of Villabhaja has no walls in the conventional sense. It is space itself. There are no icons, no texts, no gods in human form, only wind, sound, and silence. And when you stand in the middle of this hall, between the rustle of the air and the rumble of the earth, it becomes clear. Perhaps the ancients knew something we have long forgotten. That prayer is not words, but the ability to feel the world breathing with you. And perhaps that is why the temple still lives, because it is made not of stone, but of breath. The temples of Asia are more than just traces of ancient architecture, remnants of stone and ritual. They are the breath of time itself, frozen in material form. Each sanctuary from Kailash to Villabhadra bears the imprint not of an era, but of a consciousness, that invisible memory that connects man to the earth, sound, and sky. Some rise in the clouds, others sleep underwater or deep in the rocks, but all sound the same, slowly, evenly, like the heart of the world, which never ceases to beat even when we forget it. And perhaps this is their secret. The ancients didn't build temples to worship gods. They built them to remind us that the divine is always within, where stone turns to silence, and silence becomes light.